Hi, AT from CNC at Home. So you bought a laser. Now what do you do? I've been asked this question more than once, and it's a fantastic question. People get excited about doing CNC laser stuff at home. They order a laser, and then they aren't quite sure where to start. I had the same thing. I ordered a laser, and I really didn't know where to start. I did do a process, and I want to go through that, and maybe it'll help you out if you're in that same situation. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Let's get started. Before you even get your laser, one thing that you can do is download the LightBurn software. They have a full free trial that you can download. For 30 days, you can use the full LightBurn package. It has absolutely all their features built into it for free for 30 days. If you don't like it, then you don't have to buy it. If you do like it, it's relatively inexpensive given how powerful it actually is. What kind of projects do you do? That sort of thing? Well, etch on a piece of cardboard that you pull out of the recycling. Maybe a piece of white paper. The downside to white paper is it reflects the laser too much. So if you have colored paper, other than blue, most of the diode lasers are blue and that doesn't cut blue very well. But browns, tans, orange, yellow, pink, paper burns pretty quickly or burns pretty well. You can also burn on a piece of scrap wood. If you've got a piece of scrap wood lying around, do a little etching on that. It's another great thing you can do. What I like to do is quick go into LightBurn, show you some basic settings, kind of how it comes set up, things that you might want to change or things that you want to get configured. Also things that you want to learn. You don't have to have your laser to start using LightBurn software. There's so much that it can do and so many things to learn. Don't overwhelm yourself with a project and having to learn your software and the hardware all at the same time. While the shipping is happening and your laser's coming to your house, download the LightBurn software. Go through some basic tutorials. Play around with it. You can't hurt it. Let's zip over to LightBurn and take a look at what I'm talking about. Here we have the advanced LightBurn setup. It really doesn't look a whole lot of different from the beginner setup. I do have a grid turned on. I don't remember exactly how this came out of the box, but there's many things that you can do to customize it. One of the first things you'll want to do is come down to settings. You can also get that right here, either way. In the settings interface, they do have a beginner mode, which simplifies some of it. It takes some things away, kind of has more of a wizard interface, sort of, for some of the things. One of the things I turned on right away was this filled rendering. Let me show you what that does real quickly. If I take just something simple, like a rectangle, and I say that I want it to be filled, you'll notice that it's not filled in here. If we go to preview, it is filled in. That always bugged me. And then I found that there was a setting for that. So in here, if we turn filled rendering on, then it's filled in on our display. They do talk about how it can slow your system down. If you have any kind of decent system, you'll never notice it until you get a super duper complex thing that has to be filled in. I wouldn't worry about that. Another thing I like having turned on is this full screen line cursor. Let me turn that on. Then you can see associated or attached to my cursor, I get a nice vertical and horizontal line. I find that useful for getting some approximate measurements. I can look over on the side here and see, oh yeah, I'm at about 200 millimeters from my lower left-hand corner. That's how I have it set up. Other things you want to get set up on here would be the units that you want to use. CO2 lasers and galvo lasers tend to use per second measurements, whereas diode lasers tend to use per minute measurements. I'm using diode lasers here, so I'm set up with millimeters per minute because I want to work in millimeters. I chose millimeters because everything is so small and I wanted to have bigger numbers. If I were in inches, there'd be just a bunch of decimal places. So doing something that was 2.5 inches, well, I've got 50 whatever millimeters is the equivalent. So that's why I'm working in millimeters. That's why I have that set that way. I do have my snap to objects turned on. You can have snap to grid. So as you're moving around, depending on the grid you have set up, things will snap into the intersections of your grid. And you can set up your grid spacing too, if that's what you want to do. But those are some basic settings here that I like. Under file settings, that's all pretty straightforward. I'm not going to even bother with that at the moment. The other thing to look at would be the device settings. The device settings can be gotten to under the edit menu, or you can come under this little wrench and screwdriver to get to your device settings. Here we have some important things. When you first set up a machine, it'll go through and ask you a bunch of this. If you want to change it later, you can certainly do that, such as your working size. My LC50 has a 500 millimeter by 400 millimeter working area, so I have that set in here. The lower left-hand corner is its origin, so when I do a homing cycle, it comes down and hits the limit switches in the lower left-hand corner to establish that location. If your system is set up with a homing or limit switches, you can have it automatically do a homing cycle when you turn LightBurn on. It'll automatically do that if you have it set here. White space scan, that comes in handy if you want fast movement from when you're lasering to not lasering to lasering again. So as your laser's moving and not cutting, it'll speed up to this faster speed. Enable J-jogging is super fun to have set up. That allows you to move small increments. It's over here on the Move tab. Let me turn this off a second. So when you come over to the Move tab, here we have this continuous jog option. What that allows me to do is turn off continuous jog, and then I can just go dit, 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 and move little bits at a time. If I have this turned on, then I can click and hold, and the laser gantry will move either in the X or the Y direction. So that works when I have this turned on, so that's kind of neat. The laser enable fire button, that's this button right here, and that comes in very handy for seeing where your laser is positioned. I have that set up not only for me using the fire button, also I have it set up when I'm doing framing, which we'll talk about later. The power setting that I have is 0.2%. which for most things is low enough not to do anything. I have found with some very sensitive material that even the 0.2, or I had it at 0.1, but you need to have this set really low. You'll still be able to see it, but you don't want it to actually do anything to your material. One other quick thing you might want to change. By default, this is on, the enable out of bounds warning. And what that'll do is if you happen to have what's on your working area, if you have that set outside of your actual working area, when you go to laser this, LightBurn will warn you saying, hey, some parts of what you're doing, you're not going to be able to reach because it's outside of your burning area. That can happen sometimes when you have something right in the corner. And even though it's technically right at the limit of your machine, sometimes LightBurn, due to rounding, will say, nope, it's outside. And it'll give you a warning or not want to burn it. That is something that you might want to have turned off. That's how I have mine set up. There's a bunch of other settings that you can go through and do, but for getting started, that's a real nice one. Oh, quick, I forgot about this one. The Enable Job Checklist. This is a new feature that I really like this. This is set up per machine, and what it does is before you actually start a burn, it will bring up a checklist. And I have my checklist set up to ask me, Do I have my air assist turned on? And did I focus my laser? If I could tell you how many times I started a project and after I'd already started the burn, realized I hadn't refocused for my material type. Anyway, this is a good reminder for me. Do I want that on or not? The next thing you want to become familiar with are these different options down the side. These are all listed in your tools menu, so you can get to them there as well. You want to learn how to draw a line. You want to learn how to draw rectangles, ellipses, potentially polygons. You want to learn how to do text. The rest of this stuff, leave it for later. Get the basics down. One tip that I do want to talk about, for both the rectangle and ellipse tool, there are a couple keyboard shortcuts you can use to help you out. The one that I use frequently, and it says it here in the menu, is using the Shift key. And when you use the Shift key and drag, you actually get a square versus a rectangle. It forces it into a square. So without the Shift key, I can make just whatever size rectangle I want, and I can come back and feed in dimensions if I need that. Once I press the Shift key, it becomes a square, and it forces my object to be a square. That's kind of a handy one. The same thing happens with the ellipse. I can create an ellipse. As soon as I hit Shift, it forces it into being a circle. What can be handy with the circle one is the Control key forces it to move from the center. And so I can do both Shift and Control. So if I want an ellipse or a circle to be centered right here, I can do Shift and Control, and it resizes based on the center. Let me just clear all of this real quickly. I'm just going to say to do a new thing, and I'm not going to save it. Let's take a look over here at our laser settings. I'm not going to go over all of this right now because this is a beginner setup. One thing you really want to become familiar with is your starting point. There are 3 options within LightBurn. You can use your current position, which means wherever the laser head currently is, that's where it's going to start doing its stuff. You also have user origin, which is something that you can set. You also have absolute coordinates. I'd like to use that all the time. It just doesn't always work for what I'm doing. Absolute coordinates is tied in with homing, and on my machine, it's the lower left-hand corner is home, so everything is measured from there. Absolute coordinates from the origin of the machine. The user origin is something that I can set. I can move to a specific spot on my machine, and then I can come up and I can set that origin. And then that becomes the 0, 0. And current position comes in handy when you just plop a piece of material on here and on your working area, your cutting area, and then you just define the lower left-hand corner and say, burn from this spot. Use my current position. You can also tell it when your current position, are you basing it on the lower left, upper right, lower right, middles, absolute center? You can do those things as well to tell it exactly how you need it to work. This is a little more advanced. There's a video at the LightBurn YouTube channel. I'll have that down in the description. You can go see a nice video that explains all about using all of this. What do you do first? As I mentioned, just go grab some scrap stuff out of your recycling. Paper or wood products in general etch really easily and really nicely, especially the browns and tans. Whites, as I said, reflect the laser, so it ends up needing more power to do stuff. Black works really well because it absorbs all that laser energy. Blues don't work so well either because the laser is blue and a lot of your energy ends up getting reflected. If you find something like a piece of cardstock, what do you burn on it? What settings do you use? I suggest coming up to Laser Tools and using Material Test. This is a fantastic tool that LightBurn has for creating a test pattern to determine what parameters are going to work for your laser. You basically have a grid of little squares that can look something like this. It's just a grid of setting changes. Here we're doing power and speed. You have 4 different things you can do on your grid. You can do speed, power, interval, and passes. Interval has to do with the distance between the laser cuts when it's filling. Passes is how many times does it do it. Power is a percentage of the power of your laser, 0 being off and 100% is full power. And speed is how fast it's moving, either in millimeters per second or millimeters per minute, inches per second, inches per minute, whatever your settings are. You can set the size of those squares that you're creating. They could be rectangles, I guess, too, if you had these at different sizes. And then you set the parameters. Many times what I'm looking at is speed and power. And for this particular example, that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to get a piece of cardstock. I'm going to put it in my laser, and I want to do a test burn. Now, I've already done this. I have a good idea. Down in my library, I've created a whole slew of parameters. So for etching on brown material, essentially, I know that I can go 5,000 millimeters per minute at 30% power. If you don't know, you have to guess. This particular laser is a 10-watt laser. If you have a 5-watt laser, the speeds are going to need to be slower, or your power is going to have to be higher, or a combination of the two. What you want to do is set a range. So for this particular test, maybe I'll start out at 1,000 millimeters per minute, and I'll go up to, I'll go up to 5,500 millimeters per minute. And for the power, I don't like running my laser past 80% as a general rule, so I'll put that at 80. And then on the lower end, I will go with, maybe I'll just go with 10%. It won't create even increments, but who cares? We'll do a quick preview, see what that looks like. As we can see, our speed over here goes from 1,000 millimeters per minute up to 5,500 millimeters per minute. Our power goes from 10% in these odd increments all the way up to 80. If I cared about those increments, I could change my upper limit or my lower limit so that it was maybe 5% increments. And we could do something like that. Let's go ahead and do that because I know this will get us in the right range anyway. We'll just set that at 55. You may have noticed that the passes was set to 3. Up here at the top, you'll see that our interval is set to 0.1 millimeters and our passes is set to 3. Don't need 3 passes for this. This is super easy to do. Let's go change that. We have a material setting button here, and we have a text setting button here. The values set in these 2 tabs are the defaults that the material test will use other than what you have set here. So for instance, if I set speed and power in my material settings, it's overwritten by what I have set here. Things such as the passes, though, as we saw, are set to 3, and we want 1. So I can set that to 1. We also saw that our interval was set to 0.1. What that means is there's 0.1 millimeters between each line that the laser does as it's filling in an area. I can also set my scan angle to, it's currently set to 90. I'm going to set it to 0 so it scans left and right instead of up and down. I could have this set to 45. It all depends on your laser and what works better. The speed and the power doesn't matter what I have set here because that's going to be overridden by the material test interface itself. We'll go ahead and click OK on that. Our text settings, that's what's going to be used for the text here. So all of our labels and how things are being done, it's the parameters that cut that. If you don't know what's going to work, then you got to take a big guess. Again, I know what works on my laser. You might want to go a little bit lower, either slower speed or higher power. Because I know what burns on this material, I'm just going to go 4,000 for the speed, and I'm going to do 25% on the power. I only need one pass for doing text. And let's see, do I want my text filled in? Yeah, why not? Let's fill in the text. That's the other thing we can control here is whether we're doing lines or fill. Well, we'll go ahead and set that. Let's keep that at 0 just like we did the others. One pass. Click Save. We notice here for our actual material numbers, I do have it set to fill. When you're testing to cut through material, you could set this to line, which will then cut through material. Again, that's an advanced setting. Right now, we're interested in etching, so we're going to use the fill mode. Now we have all of our parameters set. Let's take a preview. In the preview, everything's going to look the same here because it's just drawing lines. If we zoom in, you'll see that it is just lines that is drawing, and in between each one of these lines is 0.1 millimeters. So 10 lines equals a millimeter. When this burns out, it'll do it in a specific order. We can actually do a simulation here by clicking play. I have my time set to 40x, which means it'll play really fast. So let's do that real quick. And this is showing you the order, how it's going to do this. Another option we have here is we can turn on our travel so we can see where the laser is moving and not burning. It does that in red. You'll see that it comes past here. There's this extra stuff, and that's an overscan that I have set. So when the laser gets to the end of cutting, instead of stopping right away and reversing, I have a little bit of area for it to slow down, stop, and then accelerate back up before it starts burning again. That can help keep your speed while you're burning more consistent. Most of the time I have this shut off because I don't want to see that. Go ahead and click OK on that. Oh, one other thing. Let's bring it back up. I won't zoom in. But you can see here that it's estimating 37 minutes, 51 seconds. And that's kind of a long time, but it's doing quite a bit. It's burning little squares. It's going slowly and then ramping up. So as we get up to these top ones, it'll be burning faster, but down here it's burning slower. So that's why it takes so long. Once you have something like this set up, you can save these parameters so that you can come back and try it again or give yourself a starting point. Let's go ahead and click Save. And I'm going to call this brown card stock. I'll save that. Then if I ever come back into material test, instead of starting from its defaults, I can come in here and I can select brown cardstock and go with the defaults I have set. Once the material is in place, we can go ahead and click Start. We had mentioned the frame option earlier. What this does is it will draw a square or a rectangle around your max and mins for your burning area so you can see where that's being burned. If you have the parameter set up here to show the laser while framing, if you have this turned on, then you'll actually see the laser on your material. If you don't have that set, then it's just a laser head moving. So we can go ahead and let's bring that back up. To run this on the laser now, all I have to do is click Start. Let's go take a look at the laser while it does this. Okay, let's quick home the laser so it knows where it is. And then I will bring it over to just some random spot. Good enough. I've already focused the laser, so we're set there. Let me go ahead and turn on the exhaust fan and bring up my material test. This is what it looks like when we do a frame. Let's go ahead and start the burn. This will take about 38 minutes. Let's quick move the gantry out of the way and take a look at what's going on here. Turn the fan off so it's not quite so loud. Let's take a look at this. All right, you may not be able to see this. Let me get another piece of paper. I take this white piece of paper and put it behind here. We can See that it actually cut through on a bunch of these settings. It just obliterated, so we're definitely too much power and too slow down here. This is the kind of material test that you want, where you have some really dark all the way up to some really light. So somewhere in between here is going to be a good setting. And I know that I like using somewhere right in here at about 30% power and 50 or 5,000 millimeters per minute. So 30 comes up here. So about right there is what I would normally use. Get that in a little closer so you can see that. It gives us a nice dark color. If I wanted something lighter, then I could certainly lower the power or potentially speed it up a little bit somewhere in here. So this is a really good test pattern. I get a nice variety of obliterating the material all the way up to just starting to change its color a little bit up here. So this is a good material test. Once we've done a material test and we have some values, we can come into the library feature within LightBurn and create something we can save for the next time. To create a new item in your library, you have to have something to stick in there. So I'm just going to create a rectangle real quickly. I'll come up here to my cuts and lasers and set some parameters. Looking at my test pattern, I see that I want to be at about 50,000 and I want to be at 30% power. I'm going to have line interval of 0.1. I'm going to use 0 for my scan angle, and I'm going to use 1 for the number of passes. Go ahead and click OK. Now that I have that set here and it's highlight, I can come down to my library and say create new from layer. And I can give it a name. I'm going to call this brown stuff. I'm going to say that there's no thickness because I'm not cutting through it. If I'm cutting through it, then I'd want to give it a thickness. And I'll give it a title. And I'll say nice etch. And then the description is this speed is good for etching. Whatever you want. Click OK. And as you'll see, it created a category of brown stuff, subcategory of nice etch, and this speed is good for etching. Okay, so this is kind of being silly. This is, not what I would normally do since I already have cardstock set up. I have etching for dark brown. So I categorize things that way. It's the type of material. In this case is etch. This is dark brown. This is white paper. This is for fill versus up here, this is for doing lines. That's kind of the nomenclature, how this works. Here we have material thicknesses. These are all going to be for cutting through. So this 0.48 is for cutting through black paper, essentially, or black cardstock. Is it really lower? Okay, here we go. So cutting through white paper, I have some cardstock it's called 110 pound paper. To cut through that, these are the parameters that I would use. Again, if we take a look, we'll see that I'm doing one pass. I might sometimes do two passes because white paper does not cut as well as you'd like. I could always increase the power. I could decrease my speed. I can make multiple passes. Whatever works best. Again, a little more of an advanced feature. We won't cover that right now, but start building your library. Once you do your material tests and you have some parameters, store it here in the library so you don't have to do it or try to remember every single time how you did it. Once you have your speed and power setting, go ahead and try something. You could do something simple like do some text, do your initials or your name, change the font to something fancy or something plain and boring. Whatever. I mean, you want to do, try it. Make it bigger, make it smaller. I'll go to 50 millimeters. and try etching that on a piece of cardstock or on a piece of paper. Just try it out, see how it works. It's not like the material is going to cost you a whole lot. It's some time, it's learning, it's fun to do. Another thing would be to bring a picture in, and that's a little more advanced, but maybe doing a picture would be kind of fun. I hope you found that useful for getting started with your laser adventure. I put a bunch of the links down into the description, so you can just click on those and get to the various things that I'm talking about, such as the LightBurn software website, their YouTube channel, some links to various videos that might be helpful, that sort of thing. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. That really helps us out. If you like the content of our channel, think about subscribing. And as always, enjoy doing your CNC at home projects.